Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Reset Podcast. I'm your host, Lauren Yo. And on the podcast, I always bring on really incredible business leaders who are doing some game changing work. And this episode is no different. I am delighted to have Brian Owens, who is the Senior Vice President of Commerce Strategy at VML Weiner Commerce, where I also happen to now work as Global Chief Experiential Officer. He has a really incredible story. He's working on some fascinating projects, and it's going to be a great conversation. Take a listen. Hey, Brian.
Hey, Laura, nice to have you. Thanks for having me on the call. Let's just put it that way. Appreciate you.
Oh, glad to have you on. So
Yeah.
the way the podcast works is the first question is always the same. And I'm sure your answer to this question will be hilarious.
Okay.
Brian, what was your first job?
My first job. Wow. Okay. It won't be on LinkedIn, I'll tell you that. My first job was at Lockheed Martin Well, my first job was a caddy at a golf course, and I would call babysitting as first jobs at 12. But and my first paid W-2 job, I would say, was at Lockheed Martin. I was a cost analyst in their naval electronics and surveillance system. So I came from a secret clearance background, I guess. A little bit different from advertising.
A tiny bit.
Yeah.
A little bit. So how did we go from there all the way to now being Mr. Really Important SVP? Like, what was that journey like?
Love that. Really important. Yeah. I would say it was an evolution of self-discovery. I think coming out of undergrad, I was an athlete, so I had things laid out for me with structure, and success was easy to, if you scored a goal or got a touchdown or whatever, you got a lot of attention and sort of validation. I think personally and professionally, success came, but I think matching personality, and I think from accounting gave me a really good foundation of business and understanding. But I think once you understood marketing and sales really drove sort of the outcome and the results a lot of the time, I found myself gravitating to those functions as I kind of progressed through my career more and more. And my personality really aligned more to business development and client interaction. So I sort of embraced that. But also I think my superpower is the preparation, as well as sort of the accounting, understanding how it takes to get stuff done. I think that's sort of that story in itself of kind of humility, discovery, but also success allowed me to sort of focus my attention on being more client facing and outward facing and thought leader facing than kind of behind the scenes, putting the soup together.
And so for you, what was that reason for you to be like, you know what, now I want to take this unique role at VML Weiner Commerce?
Well, I think it started when I would work, from working at Gillette and then Reckitt Benckiser, these big brands, you appreciate what it takes to build a big brand, like a Coca-Cola or whatever. I've been around these ecosystems, so I think for me, seeing that process, what goes into it, but also realizing that marketing, we worked with a lot of shopper marketing agencies, and I was part of those teams when I was selling things to Walmart, CVS. So I saw the beauty, the storytelling, what made the difference on the sale. So when I had the opportunity to come to VMLY and our commerce, it was exciting because that strategy that went into those calls at the retailer or even with the brands internally on these big brands was exciting to me. Now I'm part of that. Like now I represent that thinking. I represent that intelligence. I represent that creativity that the Gillettes of the world and the Lysol brand I worked on really appreciated. We needed personality that really transformed the credibility and the brand equity the brands had. So VMLY and our commerce provided me that platform to do that.
So, how we got connected was I read this really awesome article that you did for Adweek called about justice to shelf.
Right.
And, it's funny because you've thought of it, but like when you actually see it in print or online, it sort of is like, oh, of course. Right. So I'd love for you to kind of talk about what justice to shelf is and why it's so unique and different.
Well, I feel like it starts with just this idea of equity, right? So I think you asked me a bunch of questions about my career, and I think through that journey, Laura, I imagine you have a very similar as a person of color at the position you're at as a global, chief experiential officer. There's a lot that goes into that title as well as that responsibility and leadership. But equitable, I feel like there's been a lot of barriers in my career that I feel like didn't necessarily have to be there to be successful. And I actually witnessed a lot of other folks, not necessarily of African American descent, but of other, felt like just disenfranchised or just didn't feel like they could, the let's just say the structural systematic way of working was something that was hard. And I feel like as you think about marketing and you think about where we are right now, as we're like social impact, the ability to give back to the community, social justice, these things are really, really important now. And they all drive this sort of equality equation. And as I think about justice to shelf, it's really about helping brands stay relevant and frankly, entrepreneurial and D&I focused. So diversity, inclusion focused. I think about your practice is founded on that. It's very similar to how I'm thinking. It's really about a call to action to level the playing field. So these brands that have that entrepreneurship DNA, that small business DNA, that are really trying to sort of represent the community at a local level has a voice, right? And the ability to do that requires folks like VMLY&R and retailers and bigger brands to help level the playing field, help build brand awareness, and frankly, help drive conversion at shelf. It's really focusing on the future and really trying to transform these old formulas we use to drive growth and success, and allowing entrepreneurship to really lead and innovation and creativity to really lead the conversation versus how you do your job or how you build the brand, that process, right? Less conforming, more creativity.
And so for VMLY and our commerce, how are we gonna sort of step forward and help our clients do this?
Well, I think we're doing it right now, right? I think part of what Justice to Shelf has introduced, and again, Adweek was a great platform to be able to sort of highlight the importance of it, right? There's increased demands for inclusion and diversity. It's pushing commerce to become more accessible. We also know that leading retailers like Target, Ulta, Walmart, Amazon are all accelerating and scaling small business, direct to consumer, and social impact brands, right? So we know this is the truth. So at VMLY and Commerce, what we're trying to do is really demystify the idea that this is something that you have to be pro bono. This is frankly a category growth strategy. So my job as a strategist is to work with clients to teach them sort of what questionable practices look like in this space, what a sweet spot could look like, but more importantly, help them transform. And we're actually leaning in with brands to do this as well. So we're not just talking about this at a high level. We actually have an ability to help small Black-owned brands scale. So part of what we're doing is helping transform our company internally, work process. Myron King, our Chief Integration Officer, is leading that way. I'm supporting that. But on the flip side, I'm actually trying to help transform this industry as well and really help level the playing field in a way where representation matters. But when that representation is part and competitive, we want to make sure they can grow just as fast as a Coca-Cola can grow.
Got it. And so it's interesting because, I think there's been so much talk in the last 2 years about how do we support Black and brown-owned businesses and what is the real thing that we can do. And what I've always said is that this is an economic argument. It's like, yes. Do you want to make more money? Well, then support brands, then support more brands. This is, it's not a charity. It's not oh my gosh, I want to do some good nonprofit, social good, social impact. But it's like, no, we'd like to be a more profitable conglomerate. So of course, we're going to work with these kind of really cool, interesting, upcoming brands who could really take us to the next level and open doors for us to other demographics that probably didn't know that we could even do this. And why would you leave that money on the table?
Right. You nailed the economic. Folks don't need handouts. The Black community or any marginalized community doesn't necessarily need to be feel sorry for. We just need economic opportunity in a structure and a system that allows us to compete just like everybody else This is not about being pro bono. This is about economic opportunity and, frankly, category growth. Because more competition breeds more opportunity for the consumer to be delighted, as well as for folks to make money.
Like, it's not that hard. It really isn't that hard. Um, and,
Protection, right? They want to protect their share versus grow the bigger pie.
and so where do you see this sort of going now? Because obviously, I'm sure folks, like
Yeah.
lots of people probably reached out once the article came out. So where do you all, what's sort of like now the next step?
Yeah, I think there's a couple. Well, one next step immediate is, as I wrote this article, it was on purpose, right? Because I don't like to write things that I don't have experience in. So, you know, it's really a representation of what we're already doing at VMLY and Karma. So I'm proud to say that we're partnering with an up and coming Black-owned brand, Black and Bold Coffee. Purnell, Cesar, and Rod Johnson are the owners, and I'm friends of theirs. I'm fans of theirs, and we've been partnering together for about three months now, and we're helping to grow their brand right now and help scale them, not in a pro bono way, but in a partnership way, where we're learning their capabilities and supporting them as much as possible, because their mission is aligned to where the industry is going. Social justice is a business case as well as a retail category growth solution. So the ability to bring small, up and coming Black-owned brands that are from the community, that give back to the community. They give 5% of their profits back to the youth in the community. So there's a lot of mission there that I'm a part of, that our agency is a part of, that you're going to be a part of, where we're going to grow and help brands like this grow, and then hopefully do it again, right? I think there's a mission in that, and if we want to level the playing field, we got to allow people have access to all the tools that the bigger established brands have as well, and I'm proud to be part of that solution.
Awesome. And the thing is, it's like, we just we are not shrinking as a diverse world. We are becoming a more and more and more diverse world. So why not do this right now? But also do this the right way, in terms of having you applying the same standard, the same oomph that you do with all the other brands that are out there, so that we can level out these playing fields.
Right. And then I feel like then they don't need any help. Like, these brands don't need help with brand awareness. If you think about like a VMLY&R or any other big ad agency, a lot of times these brands are established and mature, and they need help driving a sort of a new message or a new story. Well, that's not the case when it comes to a Black and Bold or a small direct-to-consumer brand, right? These folks have unique audiences. They understand who they know how to reach, they know how to message. Where they need help is access and scaling, right? The economics of supply chain management, the investment decisions, the playbook decisions you have to make in terms of where you spend your next dollar. Like, we know how to do that well at VMLY&R, as well as build these things from scratch, right? But a lot of our clients of this size and stature don't have the investment to be able to participate in that sort of opportunity, right? In the RFP or whatever. And I think what we're trying to do is create an organization that meets their needs, versus here's our rate card, work with us, or take it or leave it, right? So our ability with empathy and leadership that represents the same brand, right? We're able to do that.
It's what has to happen, and there is. I mean, the cookie is out of the jar.
We have to help each other, right? I feel like it's a network, and I'm not ashamed to say that. I feel as though I'm a mission-driven guy. I know you are as well, and I feel like we're now in a stage in our lives and in our professions where we need to align ourselves with mission-driven people if we're really going to make a difference now, and we can't just wait around and hope and pray that somebody takes initiative for us. We need more global chief experiences officers like that to open doors for people who are SVPs.
Well, yeah, and I think, look, everything is centered on culture, full stop. And I think when we do that, we win. And understanding the importance that we are a drastically different country than we were on January 1st, 2020.
Right.
We were country A, and now in April of 2022, we are country Z. Right. And so much has changed. When you think about how we approach how we shop, how we work, how we dress for work, what we buy, how we buy it, the mental health aspects of the last 2 years and what that means for how you work, about how you work, who you work with, what you work for, types of brands that you work with, there's, we're infinitely changed. And as a result of that, our behavior has infinitely changed. But what hasn't changed is the ability for people to build. Right. and take what's out there and go and make something awesome. The tools have never been more accessible. And I think, again, companies like ours are so well suited to sort of be able to lift folks as we climb into this new thing that we've all become, and not leave anybody behind.
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, we're walking the walk at VMLY&R, and VMLY&R Commerce in particular. I think both of us are examples of that, right? Being on this call, talking about this issue and talking about ways we're trying to create new opportunities to drive the business, not in a pro bono way, in a way that makes sense, that demonstrates a way that the agency can grow in a different way. And then I think on top of that, we're helping bring in new talent too, right? And then when the talent gets here, we're helping retain that talent as well. I think things like Dear Black Talent, things that Amber and Walter Greer are involved with, are awesome. And then John Cook and Eric Campbell are doing great jobs as leaders too, creating space for us, as well as Beth Ann, recruiting and retaining talent like us too. So I think in general, this agency is in the right direction and we're walking the walk. And I think more importantly, I think our creative and everything is going to represent that in the future if we keep doing stuff like this.
So, obviously you've probably had a lot of really interesting and unique challenges throughout your career. So I'd love for you to talk about a time that you had a challenge where you're like, there's no way I'm getting through this. And then you did.
Yeah. I got to say now, I recently lost my mother in December from pancreatic cancer. And I think the ability to have a space like this to be able to be myself and build with other people and work on businesses like this gives me strength and ability to kind of, live the dream that she had for me, but more importantly, be part of a community where I feel safe and part of, right? So I think prayer, meditation are things that I'm embracing. I'm chasing serenity now. And I think these things allow me to be more present and available for folks that look like me too. So I think reframing is helpful as sort of the lesson there, as well as being as humble as possible, I think are the sort of things I'm holding on to right now as I kind of enter this next stage of life.
Wow. And thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
And see, and I think, again, this is, why I love doing this podcast. I think now I'm in my 6th year of doing it, is that the honesty and vulnerability of the executives who come on the show always shines through in really beautiful and impactful ways, because there are a lot of Brians out there right now but who literally just heard that, because I think it's often we have this mantle that we have to be so strong, unbreakable, and and can never let anyone see us sweat. And
doesn't make sense.
And like I said, it's one of those things it's one of those things I'm just like grateful for because of the pandemic, because people all had to take a moment and be like, actually, you know what? This is not easy.
No, you gotta bring your whole team into work now, right, Laura? Like, you can't. The mental is just as important as the achievement that how you achieve matters. How, like, the type of person you are and matters too, right? So you bring it out of people too, Laura. So give yourself some credit. Your ability to.
I know. I'm good at this.
Yeah. You bring it out of people, so it's good.
Because I think that we do. I think, and it's interesting because obviously, my world has changed in the last few months in a way that I never expected and didn't think I'd ever do again. But when I look at it now, because like someone asked me recently, like, what would I have said, what would I have done differently and to get to where I am now? And I was like about to say all these different things. I was like, honestly, you know what? I'm exactly where I need to be.
Yeah, you're supposed to be where you're supposed to be, an inspiration for all of us, and frankly, a friend. I think you're doing a great job, and I really appreciate everything you've done for me in the short time we know each other. I mean, honest.
Again, I'm sending you my Cash App link.
I love it. You just say that. That's dope.
I have to. But it's interesting because, like, again, like we just, we have to help each other. We have to assist each other at this moment because we have so many incredible opportunities to do some really impactful things, but it's not something that we do alone. And I think oftentimes that is the struggle. And even with this, like, smaller brand, but they think they have to sort of, like, there is some honor in going it alone and not going to folks like us at larger agencies,
Yeah.
or thinking that they're not worthy of coming to knock on our doors to work with us, versus, hell yeah, I should. Like, it's
Equitable. We're trying to have a solution for everybody because that's what the industry needs. At the end of the day, I feel like everyone has a shot to be successful. Why can't we help them tell their story? Why can't we?
like there should not be a limit on the opportunities for growth and
Right.
and the folks that you get to work with. It's, dream as big as you want, and then make that dream come true. Like that's the whole point of all of this. So thinking about, like, the challenges you've had in the last year or so,
Yeah.
like, what does Brian do for Brian? Like, what do you do for yourself care?
I spent a lot of time with my daughter, who's 4. I spent a lot of time running after her and being a dad. I spent
You're a girl dad. God help you.
I'm a girl dad. I'm a hardcore girl dad. I'll dress up, whatever. I'll do whatever she wants me to do. Make her happy.
I have news for you. That does not change even when you get into your 30s. Like, I do the same thing to my father to this day.
I figured. Also travel quite a bit. I'm a global like you. I like experiencing people, culture, challenging myself. And then nature. Spend a lot of time outside, hiking. I live in Boston. Believe it or not.
Where are you hiking in Boston?
Yeah. We hike in the Blue Hills, man. There's stuff to do. It's relaxing. So yeah, I like I said, and try to help as many people as I can, man. There's a lot of people in pain out there, and try to be available to them as much as possible. So that's what I like to do as well, whenever I can. So that's
the hashtag Black Man Hikes is what you're telling me.
Black Man Hikes, most stuff. Yeah.
That is incredible.
Shorts. I'll put my LOD on. I'll do it all.
Yeah, I recently discovered hiking. And actually, it was in Western Massachusetts because I went to I have this thing where I go to the Miraval Spa in the Berkshires.
Oh, that's a beautiful place. Look at you.
Yeah. So again, if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it in, like, the bougiest way possible.
So I like spas too. So I'm down for all the healthcare stuff. No, I'm not down. I'm totally down for a good pedicure as well. So all that.
You haven't lived. You had a neuromuscular massage at the spa, and you come out feeling a foot taller.
Next, this is amazing. Awesome.
I'm just saying, because you live in Massachusetts, but yeah, and it is interesting because, like I said, the last years have been this kind of interesting revelation around discovery and trying new things that I probably never would have. And I live in New York City. We don't hike here.
No.
Like, there ain't no hills.
Park, right? I mean, you want to do that. That's not smart.
That's not a hill. What are you gonna watch? A walk to the park, literally. But yeah, so, like, I one of the things was to do this, like, hike and trail thing, and it was, like, honestly the most relaxing thing I had done since the pandemic had started. And, like, now I've been to this spot, like, I don't know, 4 or 5 times now, and, like, I always go on a hike now because, like, I realize the importance of, like, breathing the fresh air and like, not looking at my phone.
Phone's a big deal, right? I feel like that's for me where I need I think being able, like, my therapist actually said, like, you need to be more present, right? And just try to, like, run around so much. So hiking has allowed that to happen. And you're right. The phone is a huge distraction. You find yourself constantly looking at that thing all the time. So yeah, I'm on board with turning off the no more screen time when you're trying to relax.
It doesn't work. The key idea is, okay, once you're in the woods, it doesn't work. So there you go.
So, you're right about that.
Usually you have to turn it off. With Justice to Show, it's just kind of really amazing stake in the ground that we're taking as an agency.
Right.
Prediction-wise, where do you think we'll be in 18 months from now?
I think 18 months from now, we should have more Black or small business brands that we are helping to support in scaling. And we'll hopefully have a team, and we're recruiting people to be part of that team. That's a vision I have. And then frankly, I'm hoping we're able to collaborate, find more bigger brands that want to work with these smaller brands. So it's a win-win for everybody, especially B Corp type of companies. I think we want to find more of those that we want to work with. At least I want to work with more of those types of companies. So that's what I'm thinking. Try to scale this, identify talent to bring in to support it, and market it, like I'm doing right now with you.
This is literally what we're doing. So, and I think I know what this is going to be for this one, but like, do you have a give and or an ask of the audience?
Give, help some. I love this. I love this. Forgive. I think forgiveness is something we all need to work on as people, and I think that will allow us to see people more equally. And then I think, what was the other one you asked? Give and what?
And an ask.
An ask is, as marketers who are listening, or market scientists, allow ourselves to see our own bias in our thinking and find another person to bounce our ideas off of that we trust, so we can really implement some of these, so we can really bring a more, I feel like acceptance is a big thing. So I think people accepting things for what they are will allow people to, as a marketer, to really make the right decision next, right? I think we bring a lot of our bias into our decisions. So I think our ability to help somebody else out is probably a practical step that people can take. And then I think more importantly, finding ways to help somebody else in a brand, or anybody, not a brand, but help somebody else in work or outside of work, is something I would want more people to do.
I think that's awesome. It's so true. And it's interesting. In 250 odd episodes of this podcast, you're the first person who's ever said that folks should focus on forgiveness.
Yeah, I just think I've done that myself. So I just think there's like, when you lose somebody, it's hard not to kind of reflect back. And one of the things I wish I did a better job of while I had my mom was just not forgiving her, but just other things, so I could have been more present for people I really care about. I think that's really something I want more people to kind of, don't hold on to stuff, man. Let it go quick. Let it go quick.
Yeah, and I think a big part of that forgiveness is forgiving yourself.
Yeah. And I feel relieved and more who I am now, and I feel excited about what that looks like now. Even with this, that's why I feel like there's some inspiration in the loss, but it starts with acceptance and forgiveness.
It really does, and I think it's just so impactful. And again, I think the last 2 years, I think everyone's had that moment to reassess and think about where they are and what they've done, where they've been. And I too would, I think, look, we've all made a gazillion and one mistakes.
Yeah.
And you're not out to hurt people. You make mistakes because of the situations that you're in, but also you have to forgive yourself to be like, you know what? At that moment, that's where it was. I saw a good friend of mine wrote this recently, and because she's like, just forgive me because I wasn't available. I had to take a step back, and I was like, yes, that is it. Like, we all have to let it go and realize we're not superhuman robots. Yep. We are going to make mistakes, and we learn from the mistakes that we've made, but also we can't carry that weight of like, oh my God, all the mistakes I've made, no one's ever going to want to work with me, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, it's just stupid. I think even as we get older and more successful, it's harder to get feedback. So we allow our brains to tell us stories that aren't true, right, about situations. So I feel like the more you can accept things, it's easier to sort of now allow yourself to misinterpret something that you need to interpret relevant, like the relevance of, I just feel like it's maturity too. There's a lot of maturity in this stuff that we're talking about.
It's like the gift from Insecure with Natasha Rockwell. It's growth.
Yeah. Read that next. Thank you for the recommendation. I haven't read that.
Thank you so much for joining, Brian. You were great.
And I gave you everything here. So bring it. Take it. run with it. All right.
Awesome. Thanks so much for joining the podcast.